Team, I told you about the Oklahoma State football coach, Mike Gundy, who made the mistake of posting, and it's not a mistake, I just want to be very clear about that, but it's being treated like a mistake in the current crazy witch-hunting left-wing mob environment, that he wore a One America News T-shirt in a post about a fishing trip he was on. He wasn't saying, hey, look at my One America News T-shirt, I love these guys. He just was posting a photo of him with friends on a fishing trip, and he happened to have a T-shirt on that said One America News. Well, sure enough, one of his players, a Mr. Chubba, I do not recall his last name, apologies. Producer Mark, what's his last name? Mr. Chubba, do we know?
Hold on.
Well, he'll find out. But as somebody with
Chubba Hubbard.
Chubba Hubbard, yes. Mr. Chubba Hubbard did not appreciate that his coach had a photo wearing a One America News T-shirt. And so from there, we went through the usual, I have to apologize, I have to bend the knee, please don't send me to the re-education camps of the left. And then, once you do all that, guess what? The left sends you to the re-education camp anyway. That's what people don't understand. I'm not saying bend the knee because it's going to, because it's just a question of what's right and what's principled. You usually want to bend the knee because guess what? They're not going to let you stop bending the knee. Once you do it one time, that's it. Once you do it one time, you're stuck. Here is the apology hostage video Oklahoma State's coach Mike Gundy put out. Play clip 2.
I had a great meeting with our team today. Our players expressed their feelings as individuals and as team members. They helped me see through their eyes how the T-shirt affected their hearts. Once I learned how that network felt about Black Lives Matter, I was disgusted and knew it was completely unacceptable to me. I want to apologize to all members of our team, former players, and their families for the pain and discomfort that has been caused over the last 2 days. Black lives matter to me. Our players matter to me. These meetings with our team have been eye-opening and will result in positive changes for Oklahoma State football. I sincerely hope the Oklahoma State family, near and far, will accept my humble apology as we move forward.
Knee bent, apology offered. We'll see if absolution follows. Now, look, there's always a little bit of a conflict for me on the way I feel about these things, because on the one hand, I want to tell everybody, stand tall, stand proud. Come on, man. Here's the thing. He didn't do anything even a little bit wrong. This is crybaby nonsense, all right? It's a cable news channel. The guy's wearing a T-shirt. Maybe it was the only clean T-shirt he had access to that day. It was laundry day, right? He's not going around handing out One America News literature in the locker room. And the guy's wearing a T-shirt. Grow up, people upset by this. Okay, he's not wearing, a swastika, but they think that's the problem. They treat One America News like it is a swastika. I mean, they think that this is hateful. I know people work at One America News. They're nice people. They do a good job. They are conservative. They like the president, but they're not horrible human beings. They're not trying to push for extermination of their fellow human beings. I mean, it's hard to argue with insanity. And so you start to lose your own grip on reality a bit, because you think, how could the other side be so crazy? Am I missing something? You start to question your own grip on things. And then you realize, no, they're actually just nuts. The left is actually just crazy. But then I have this competing emotion sometimes, which is, look, I get it, man. I mean, Mike Gundy, I'm assuming Oklahoma State, because it's Oklahoma, I'm assuming their football team is very, very good. It's a big, storied program. He probably makes a lot of money. Producer Mark, is this guy like is he an elite coach? I have no idea. I don't watch college football.
Most famous for a rant, which I can't believe is 12 years ago now. I'm a man, I'm 40. I don't know if you remember that press conference.
No.
Basically, somebody wrote an article about one of his players, and he went off in a press conference screaming, I'm a man, I'm 40. It's hilarious. You should Google it. So he's been there a long time.
Okay. So the guy's been there a long time. And it's a big program, obviously, right? Oklahoma State, I'm assuming, is like a football powerhouse.
It's a pretty good program.
Oh, okay. That's not okay, whatever.
They're
But
not winning national championships, but it's a well-known program.
It's a serious football program. Okay. It's not like Amherst College where the football team might as well have been the interpretive dance team. Okay. So let's get back to this. I feel a little bit badly because, look, I get the guy's got a wife. He's got kids. He's worked really hard to have this job. And he panics and you freak out. This is why look, on the one hand, I'm telling everybody, don't bend the knee. But I also understand that people want to keep their jobs. And I tell you, don't charge the machine gun nest. Now, that's a different thing. To not bend the knee is to say that what you know is right. And when you haven't transgressed, you should not apologize for it. That's different than going out there and engaging in public debate on these issues at the risk of your career, your reputation, etc. That's a different choice to make. But I get it. People don't want to lose their jobs either. And this just shows you the power that the left has accrued in this process. Every person that you hear talking about this stuff on the radio or watching on TV, anyone who is deviating from the leftist orthodoxy, anyone who has a point of view that does not line up exactly with what the BLM movement is proposing, and just does everything that they're supposed to do right now, given what the outrage mob is demanding, is putting themselves at some degree of professional risk and at reputational harm. Now, for those who have been in the game for 20 years and are worth like $100 million and all that stuff, okay, I'm not exactly going to, they're not the biggest heroes in the world. I'm kind of amazed that people who are in that position aren't taking bigger risks in speaking the truth and speaking out and fighting against this. That was one of my complaints in that viral thread that thankfully Rush Limbaugh read on his show. Where are Rush is clearly, he's reading my thread, so he's clearly on board for this and trying to get the word out and doesn't want the status quo to continue. And there are others. I've been name dropping Tucker a fair amount here just because I think that he's doing a great job. But there are some others I'm saying, well, where are they on this one? Where is the stand alongside? And one thing that we lack on the right that I'm just furious about, there's no sense of conservative solidarity. No sense of this political movement. We share this ideology. Anyone who listens to the show, when anyone from Team Buck, when the world was normal, I would actually travel and be out and doing things, and same with all of you, when they would see me, yeah, we have the bond of anyone who listens to this show feels like a friend of mine and knows me quite well, knows my voice, understands in a way who I am much more than even people that I had been friends with for a long time, because they're spending a lot of time with me and they're hearing my thoughts on things. But also we share an ideology. We share a value system and beliefs, and there is a camaraderie that comes along with that. There's a sense of, I say Team Buck all the time. It's not just supposed to be some catchy slogan for T-shirts. There is a sense that we are fighting for the same things. We are on the same team. And that's true of everybody who listens to this show. What about all the other conservatives out there? Now, I have my contacts in this media world that come on the show and that are friends of mine and that are allies in this cause. Gosh, I feel like the term ally has been so co-opted, but that are fighting with me. But I can tell you this: if you attack a big lib in the media, if you criticize, let's say, Anderson Cooper at CNN, a real, iconic left-wing journo, it's not just, and he might even ignore you, but if he engages. There will be an army of blue checks from the Daily Beast and the New York Times and the MSNBC and Slate and all and HuffPost. They will all, Anderson's amazing, you're a loser, I hate, they'll all come at you and everything else. And while it's annoying and they're childish morons, I got to at least respect that, they will defend their own. If you are a conservative, I got to tell you something. You get into a public exchange with some of the other, with the other side on this stuff, and if it's someone who is kind of a revered leftist, if it's Anderson Cooper, or if it's you go down the list of the big lib journo types out there, Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times or something, you're on your own. You're right. Now, look, I fight my own battles. I don't really care. I'm just saying it's interesting to me that we are so vocal about our defense of freedom and the First Amendment, and also how important it is to fight for our ideology. And I'm telling you, when there's a little bit of heat, a lot of people on the right run for the exits. We don't have a lot of buddies, not a lot of friends. And I will tell you this too. I always note who you can count on, who stays in the trench when the left-wing enemy is on the move and assaulting. I know who stays there with you and who heads for it. Maybe one day I'll start to name some names. You want me to name names? I'll name names. I remember Alex Jones made a video a long time ago about that. That was funny. I had so much fun with the Alex Jones thing yesterday. But I do agree, like, what would I do if I moved to Austin and Alex Jones showed up and knocked on my door? He's like, I heard you want to have a cage match. Well, that's right, cage match, no holds barred. Let's do it. I'd have to be like, oh, man, I got to train, I guess. This is going to be. Just kidding. I want a cage match of the mind. So where was I on all that? I got a little distracted just by I get so frustrated with conservatives these days and the lack of backbone that I see from a lot of them. And it's a problem. It's, I tell you, the left takes care of their own with jobs and professorships and, TV contracts and everything else. If you're a warrior for the left, they will provide you with a living, with a pension, so to speak. They'll take care of you. If you're on the right, a lot of people on the right that you all know and you think of, you get stamped out. They go, less competition. There's a lot of that vibe out there, which affects the movement. Look, you can say that's the business, but I'm telling you, it affects the movement. It affects conservative politics too. It's not just about and you can think about it this way. Think of the people over the years that I've had on this show and have been helpful to, who then, if they had a breakout, have they ever reciprocated? I pay attention to all of these things. I never forget. And there are people whose careers in this business I have started. They've gone on to be very successful. And I always remember, who at least, even if it's in private, gives the nod and is thankful, and who's kind of like, yeah, whatever, was useful when it was useful for me. We have a culture on the right of warring factions and fiefdoms inside conservative media instead of, and even people that work at the same companies and stuff. Oh my gosh, they're all backstabbing behind the scenes. I want that station. I want that time slot. Ooh, it's gross. I mean, people that are already, they've tasted more than their share of fame and have more money than they'll ever be able to spend. They can't even count all the money they've got. There's a lot of it. It's disappointing. And that was one of the things from my thread that I brought up yesterday that I've gotten so much back channel contact about. And people want to ask me, they're saying, oh, well, name names. And I say, I try not to, but then they'll tell me. And I say, I don't want to say too much, a little bit. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too much about this, but you can all figure out who the good people are and who, the one thing that I love about radio audiences, when they listen to somebody enough, they really do know who they're listening to. In some places, they have no choice. It's the only host that's on, and they want to get something conservative. But you know who's a good person who plays this game fair and honestly, and who is a dirty backstabber and somebody that nobody should listen to. So there's that.
Well, it's really remarkable to hear what's going on in China, where they're shutting down large parts of Beijing for a couple dozen cases, several dozen cases. Texas has several dozen cases from probably a single bar with some of the reports that we're seeing. Part of it's increased testing, but the positivity rate's going up. The positivity rate's almost at 8%, according to the COVID tracking project. So this is an outbreak that's underway. It's expanding. They're at risk of tipping over. If you look at the different reporting, the number of cases yesterday in the COVID tracking project was 4,000. So there's different ways that the counties are reporting. Texas reported some numbers, but some of the independent groups are reporting higher numbers. If you heard the governor yesterday, he announced some measures to perhaps slow some of the openings around bars and restaurants, and Austin announced separate steps that they're going to take to extend some of the work-at-home orders that are in place. But Texas really needs to get control. Arizona, the positivity rate's up to about 18%, according to the COVID tracking project. Florida, it's creeping up to about 8%. So these are outbreaks that are underway, and they're worrisome because they're happening in the summer.
They're coming for you, Texas. The lockdowners are coming for you. You think that you were out of this. Oh, I had all my friends in Texas and my main man, Jesse Kelly, and others like, well, at least we can enjoy restaurants and stuff. Ho, ho, ho. Let me tell you something. The narrative is shifting. The caseload, they say, is rising. Is it about testing? Is it really about cases? Are these dangerous cases? Are these hospitalizations from COVID or hospitalizations from something else? And the person happens to have COVID. Oh, but there's somehow we have this cases rising. We have the lowest COVID fatalities, is what I saw today, since the third week of March. And that's nationwide. But we're supposed to be worried about these different states that have opened. And why would it happen in this way at this time? Georgia has been open since, May? Second, third week of May? And so it took weeks and weeks and weeks, and now these states are having these big surges. Now, they're not. Look, here's the problem that we're going to run into. We're going to spend a lot of time arguing about this. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at the data. But I also want everyone to know that here's what our fundamental position on this should be. No second shutdown. Anywhere, I don't care, no second shutdown. Protect elderly and at-risk populations. Allow for individual choice in basic risk reduction measures, but restore freedom and economic activity to the people. The tyranny of the lockdowners must end. No second shutdown. There shouldn't even be a consideration. COVID outbreaks can be addressed as they come without placing millions of healthy people under house arrest and crushing the economy once again, just in time for the upcoming election. Oh, that's not a factor in any of this, is it? And the politics of this sudden and convenient panic reporting are more clear than ever. More clear than ever. They're not going to give this up. I told you we're going to go back into unless people wake up, speak out, and refuse. I mean, there needs to be mass non-compliance for this crap. They're going to lock you back in your homes again. They don't have to do it for long. They're going to lock you back in your homes again. And if they don't do it now, guess what? They're going to try in September or October. Perfect timing. Perfect timing to make sure that anything other than what we have in terms of leadership has got to be better because of what a bad situation the country's in. But that doesn't affect the journos who mysteriously for 2 weeks we weren't hearing about COVID when all the protests and the riots were happening. Now there's a big push. By the way, my friends, please do go today. I have a whole editorial. As I told you, we have original content going up on bucksexton.com. America needs wartime conservatives. We do. But I need you to share that piece. It's on bucksexton.com right now. You need to go check it out for yourself. Read it. It's short. It's to the point. But share it on your Facebook pages. Share it on social media. Let's get the word out. We need to rally our side, or else we're going to lose. Cancel culture comes for one of my favorite websites out there. You know that we've had the founders and various writers of thefederalist.com on this show many, many, many times in the past. We're very pleased to have one of their senior editors join us now to talk about what happened to them. Why is NBC News gunning for them? And why is Google caught in the middle of this, either being the initial or either being the ultimate aggressor, or who knows? We'll figure this out. We got Chris Bedford with us now from The Federalist. Chris, thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so just tell everybody what the heck happened here, my man.
We learned a lot about this from NBC News, which has a reporter over in England who she works in the verification unit, which is a very strange name. She got in contact with a left-wing think tank also in England, which lists the Federalist as a hate site. And the reason for that is that the Federalists said that white supremacists were actually not responsible for the riots, and they were actually not white supremacist agitators in the George Floyd riots, which turned out to be completely true. That makes us a hate site. So she contacted Google and asked if we could be demonetized based on that, and as well as our comment section, which, as you know from basically any comment section, except of course for your own, is usually a cesspool. A lot of insanity gets spread in comment sections on YouTube, on Time Magazine, on the Federalist, wherever.
Oh, yeah.
They said that this was now a problem, and they were going to take that ad platform away from us. The problem here is that most websites these days make a lot of their money on Google Ads. It's the biggest game in town. It's the reason why your browser crashes when you try to go to too many websites. Google Ads downloading too much information from you. They bungled this entire story from top to bottom, though, because we got in contact with Google when this broke. We didn't issue a statement. And they quickly started backtracking and saying, hold on a second. We're not going to do this to you. NBC News had to change their story. I really hope someone's held accountable for this. And now it looks like the Senate and the House are actually pretty interested in speaking with Google about this level of oligarchy where they were going to try and take us down with a nanny-state censor using a foreign think tank for printing factual things. It's really absurd, and the best part about it, at least, is how quickly it's unraveled and how quickly it showed how dangerous this is to people, because while we were able to get out of it, a lot of other people would have not had any recourse that we had.
So I did see in the at least initial NBC News report about you guys getting demonetized at the Federalist by Google, which effectively cuts off all. I mean, it's you might as well like not have an internet site anymore, right? Because you're not going to be able to pay any bills and keep any staff. So it's getting canceled from the internet is what Google pulling your ads would mean. And I just would want to know, Google, it seemed, said, according to NBC News at one point, that you guys were demonetized. Has how did this get? That seems to be that's a big thing, a big fact in this now many times revised story that NBC News wrote to get wrong. Have you, it seems like either NBC News is lying or Google's lying is what I'm getting at. Do you guys know who?
We don't know who. Based on my general experience dealing with some of these massive tech companies that will never actually open up their books and never actually explain to you how any decision was made, say that that's proprietary, or they like to do things like blame algorithms.
It's always the algorithm. It's always the algorithm. I've learned that. Yeah.
Right now, the algorithm rules. We don't write them, apparently. They always try to do that, and then they backtrack. I, for one, have a difficult time believing Google's side of the story, given that they gave this message to NBC News. This wasn't run up the chain, but somewhere someone in Google decided that was what was going to happen. Fortunately, someone else at Google decided that was actually not what was going to happen. It might get them in a lot of trouble, at least to the Federalists. So far, it appears that this is still going on for Zero Hedge, which is an interesting anonymous financial deep state site. It's kind of worth reading, but a little crazy at some points. Why anyone should be silenced is beyond me.
Speaking of Chris Bedford, senior editor at thefederalist.com, I'm wondering what you think about what I can assume, and I haven't asked you about this yet, and I haven't spoken to Ben or Sean or any other guys over at the Federalist about this, but I'm just going to assume that there hasn't been a big outpouring of support from across the media spectrum of people saying, even if we disagree with you guys, we'll stand there with you if you were to be deplatformed, which is funny because I remember Jim Acosta getting his hard pass from the White House pulled, and it was tears and lamentations in the media all across America. Am I right in assuming that you guys haven't had a lot of public support? Maybe I'm wrong.
We've had a big range of public support that goes all the way from moderate Republicans to very conservative to libertarian. There is almost none, with a few exceptions, who have been from the left. And so far, aside from one editor on CNN who tweeted that this was unbelievable censorship and completely not allowed.
Wow, CNN, that person's job is not long for this world, but keep going.
No, they put their head on the block with that one. But I was thankful for it. This is not nearly the story that, for example, Jim Acosta was. And it's funny you bring that up. To not have Jim Acosta ranting and yelling at the press secretary on television, giving no information to the public, apparently that is an assault on democracy. But removing a platform, removing the ability to make money from a media company because you disagree with their alternate viewpoint, that's not a problem at all. The corporate media is generally and largely in agreement on this. NBC is one of the oldest companies around. They're one of the 3-letter companies. They're in agreement on this, and it's difficult to be against them, but we're going to do it. We're going to keep on doing it.
And tell me about this justification that Google had for even any concern, right? I've been saying that this is like them telling you, nice website you guys at the Federalist got. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
That was great.
They were of course, this is putting you guys on notice. It puts all conservative websites on notice. We're watching you, and I've never heard of this happening anywhere else. So I'd want to know this. You have to moderate your comments or else we'll demonetize you. Is this enforced against other sites? Did you guys know about this Google rule beforehand?
We did not know about that Google rule beforehand. Now we're in conversations with Google where we have temporarily suspended our comments section to try and get in compliance with what Google wants. The amazing thing about that, and this appears to me to be their fallback from saying that they were just straight up censoring us. They're going to say, oh, no, they were bad guys in the comments. No comment section, or very, very, very few comment sections are moderated by anyone. Google is a real big pusher for rules that allow for that, because Google doesn't want to be responsible for what other people post onto their platform. It's the same thing we have at the Federalist or at the Daily Caller or with your show or with any of these other things. You don't want to have someone who's constantly reading these conversations. Google, for example, does not hold YouTube accountable for that. And if you go to almost any YouTube video, and it could be a video of balloons in the sunshine, read down 100 comments, there's something racist. I don't know where it comes from. It's a weird thing.
I'm pretty sure that if someone looked in my Twitter thread at any point in time, there's always comments from leftists that I'm like, I think this is a violation of the Geneva Conventions. I mean, they just say the craziest stuff. It's insane. But I don't actually hold Twitter. I don't blame Twitter for that.
No, Twitter just allows it, although Twitter will be funny in how quickly they'll remove speech that they deem conservative, but not deem threats from the left wing. Google really might have gotten themselves into more trouble with this excuse, because now both the House and the Senate, including politicians who previously were easygoing on Google, are saying, hold on a second, you're violating the codes you push for to protect yourself from oversight and attacking people whose viewpoints you don't agree with. That's actually even more dangerous than disagreeing with an article that was true.
That's really amazing stuff. Well, look, Chris, stay in the good fight, my friend. These days, the silencing, the great purge of conservative opinion, the great purge of free thought that is underway is deeply troubling, but it looks like you guys at least won this round. So we appreciate that, and keep doing what you do over at the Federalist, and thanks for joining us.
And you too. Thanks a lot, Buck.
Now, the Trump campaign says that hand sanitizer and face masks will be offered to all attendees, though not necessarily required. Then they're not going to wear them, just like Trump doesn't wear them, which puts Trump in danger, too. The president of the United States is going to be exposed to the aerosolized spittle of 19,000 people. Honest to God, how does the Secret Service allow him to do that? Look, I never thought I'd say this, but sir, please, build the wall. The campaign apparently has no social distancing plans. People will likely be packed shoulder to shoulder, which is a concept the president has endorsed, saying it loses a lot of flavor to have his devoted fans spread out.
You know, that guy, Stephen Colbert, is a comedian, allegedly, who is paid millions of dollars a year to read jokes other people write on a legacy media network controlled by libs. Yeah. So I guess that's what you should expect. It's not funny. It's not insightful. And it's dumb. And a lot of what he says is wrong. Trump is going to be exposed to the spittle of 19,000 people. If he somehow can fit 19,000 people within a 4-meter radius of himself, maybe. But that's not going to happen. So that's just a stupid thing to say. And I just want to know, Did Colbert have any funny jokes about all the protesters and all the looters who were gathered together, not wearing masks for weeks? Did he have any funny ha-ha jokes about all that? I'm going to guess he didn't. That's a big shock. And I also would want to know, why is it that, we should assume that that's not a huge problem, given what we're being told now about rising cases in all these different states? Why would we not blame the protests? I can assure you, this without any doubt. If there were lockdown protests every day, hundreds of thousands of people across the country in over 120 U.S. cities, if there were lockdown protests and then a spike in cases, guess who they'd be blaming? The people at the protests. Masks at best might provide some degree of spread limitation for people who are positive with the virus. Maybe it's small. I'm always amazed when I tell people, "Oh, you think if you wear a mask, it's all going to be okay." You know that the virus can get in your eyes, right? They've actually there's a study that just came out now that says, yeah, I mean, so unless you're going to wear goggles and an N95 mask that is properly fitted to you and worn all the time. So unless really you want to go out in like a scuba suit, and there are people, I will tell you, there are people in my building who are wearing, when they go outside, they wear what look like hazmat suits, white medical grade covering, plastic, like covering head to toe, goggles, the whole thing. I mean, that's what they're doing. And they're like 25, the people that I've seen doing this. They're not elderly, and maybe they have some immunodeficiency I'm not aware of, but they're going to play this whole game of Trump rallies, COVID, bad, immoral. We've known they're going to do this all along. These people have no principles, no sense of irony, no sense of decency or honesty. But the protests are, that's about justice. Yeah, that's about stopping police from being racist murderers, which they're not. The data does not support the underlying thesis of the Black Lives Matter movement, which is that cops are racist murderers. The thesis that Black Lives Matter is pushing is not the name of the movement. There is universal agreement that Black Lives Matter. The thesis the movement is actually pushing is that cops are racist and bad and kill black people systematically and at a level that is a national emergency. That is the thesis of the movement. But you won't hear that from the media. They're too busy. Worshiping at the altar of BLM. That's what they're doing. And they're happy now to see people that are just going to be dishonest about this and trash the Trump rallies. I mean, Chuck Schumer, who is as disgraceful and dishonest a politician as you will find anywhere. Here is Chuck Schumer's sense. Here is his addition to the conversation about COVID-19 and public safety and the Trump rallies. Play clip 12.
The trends are extremely concerning. I've asked the White House to have members of the coronavirus task force, including Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, to give Senate Democrats a briefing on these recent spikes. I have yet to hear back. The White House continues to muzzle the most knowledgeable people. President Trump, haven't you learned when you don't face the truth, it hurts the country and hurts you? You tried to deny that this coronavirus was real. It was a hoax. It'll go away in a few days. There are very few cases. And of course, it ravaged our country. And now they're doing the same thing. President Trump is doing exactly the same thing. Withholding the experts, withholding the truth in hopes that things will disappear. That's just not how science tells us things work. President Trump now seems ready to dismiss these issues entirely. Appalling. He is planning big campaign rallies, asking reporters, amazingly, to sign waivers not to sue if they contract COVID from attending. I guess he worries that they might get it. But he doesn't care. Wants to have his rally. That's the superficiality of this president.
I mean, what a whole stream of BS. Doesn't care. That's what doesn't care about his supporters getting this. Does Schumer care about all the protesters? Remember what we were told. It's not just the protesters may get this. They might give it to older people and kill them. Cuomo was saying you are actually killing people if you don't do what we say. I mean, the ultimate justification for authoritarianism. The Democrats were saying it in the open, repeatedly, over and over again. Does Schumer have any harsh words for the protesters? No, that's about a really important issue. So, I mean, and they were also being told that, we were being told that you had to obey the dictates of the left because it would overwhelm the health system. So it's not just about you. It's about our first-line medical responders. Now we have first-line medical responders who are showing up at these protests, who are doing dances with them, who are spending time on social media praising them. Oh, okay. So if you're a leftist, nothing else matters other than your insatiable desire for power. That your movement justifies any activity, any action, as long as it is for the good of the movement, you should do it. The good of the people, the good of truth, honesty, decency, doesn't matter. The good of the movement, that's all that matters. Okay. I mean, Chuck Schumer is a liar, a fraud, and a disgrace, but, you know, he's a Democrat senator from New York. What do you expect? That's not going to change anytime soon. But the just breathtaking hypocrisy on display from these guys about the protesters versus the rallies, you can't make this stuff up.